Before Apple, before Amazon, before any billionaire tech founder ever dreamed of world domination, there was a company that already had it all. It commanded armies, built colonies, printed its own money, and at its peak was worth more than Apple, Google, Amazon, and Saudi Aramco combined. This wasn't a nation, it wasn't a kingdom. It was a corporation, and what happened to it, how it rose to unimaginable power and then crumbled into bankruptcy, is one of the greatest financial stories ever told. The year was 1602, the company's name? The Dutch East India Company. The first trillion-dollar empire, and the world's first corporate superpower. Imagine a world where the richest city on earth wasn't New York or London, but Amsterdam. In 1602, Europe was changing. Empires were fighting for control of the spice trade, the single most profitable market on the planet. Nutmeg, cloves, and pepper weren't just kitchen items. They were worth more than gold. But for Dutch merchants, the journey to Asia was risky. Ships sank, pirates attacked. Fortunes vanished. So they created something revolutionary: shared risk. Instead of one person funding a voyage, hundreds of citizens could buy shares, small pieces of ownership in the journey. If the ships came back full of spices, everyone profited. If they sank, the losses were shared too. It was the birth of the stock market, right there in Amsterdam's bustling harbor. From that single innovation, the Verenigde Oostindische Compagnie, or VOC, was born, the Dutch East India Company. What began as a trading venture quickly became a financial revolution. The VOC was the first company in history to issue publicly traded stock, allowing everyday people to invest in global trade. And it worked. Ships funded by farmers, blacksmiths, and bakers began returning with cargo worth hundreds of times the original investment. Amsterdam transformed overnight into the financial capital of the world. A new kind of power was rising, not from kings, but from capital. But as the money poured in, something darker began to take shape. Because this new corporate machine wasn't content just to trade, it wanted control. When the Dutch Republic granted the VOC its charter, they didn't just give it a license to trade, they gave it sovereign power. The VOC could wage war. It could imprison and execute. It could build fortresses, sign treaties, and even mint its own coins. No company before or since has ever had such authority. Within a few years, the VOC became a nation in everything but name. Its fleets dominated the oceans, patrolling routes from Amsterdam to Indonesia, India, and Japan. By 1620, over 150 ships carried its flags, and 10,000 soldiers enforced its will. The company seized control of the Spice Islands, brutally eliminating rivals and securing a monopoly that made its shareholders unimaginably rich. And yet, behind this empire of trade was a ruthless logic: profit at any cost. Villages were razed, rulers replaced, and populations enslaved, all under the banner of commerce. The VOC's governors justified it as business necessity. Meanwhile, in Amsterdam, investors celebrated record profits, unaware, or perhaps unwilling to care, about the blood spilled to make it happen. For the first time in history, corporate power rivaled national power. The VOC wasn't merely trading spices, it was shaping geopolitics. And as its influence spread across the seas, so did its wealth, reaching levels the world had never seen. But here's where the story takes a shocking turn, because while the VOC appeared unstoppable, its very success planted the seeds of its collapse. At its height, the Dutch East India Company's value reached a staggering $7.9 to $10.2 trillion in today's money. That's more than the combined worth of the top 5 global corporations today. Its shareholders, from small-town merchants to noble families, earned dividends of up to 40% a year. Amsterdam's docks overflowed with ships, silks, and spices. The city itself became the Silicon Valley of the 1600s, a hub of innovation, finance, and opportunity. The VOC revolutionized modern capitalism. It introduced shareholder meetings, audited accounts, dividend payments, and even stock trading regulations. Every financial tool we use today, from public offerings to stock exchanges, was first pioneered by the VOC. But beneath the golden surface, cracks were forming. Corruption spread through its ranks. Governors inflated expenses, soldiers extorted locals, and distant officers lived like kings. While investors saw only profit, entire colonies suffered under their rule. And yet, investors kept buying more shares. Because greed is addictive, and no one believed the empire could fall. But as the 18th century approached, the VOC's enormous machinery Its ships, soldiers, and bureaucracy became too heavy to sustain. Costs soared while returns dwindled. The same company that had invented the future was now being crushed by its own ambition. And soon, a new player would appear on the horizon, ready to take everything the VOC had built. Power this great never stays clean for long. Behind the VOC's polished ledgers and glowing profits lay a maze of secrets, scandals, and rumors that still echo through history. Some claimed a secret royal dynasty pulled the strings. In truth, the company was ruled by the Heren 16th, 17 directors chosen from the richest merchant families of Amsterdam, Rotterdam, and Zeeland. They weren't kings, but they behaved like them. Meetings were closed, records vanished, and those who questioned decisions were quietly removed from the board. To investors, the VOC was a miracle of modern finance. To its workers in Asia, it was a machine of exploitation. Local rulers were forced into unequal treaties. Laborers toiled for scraps. Entire islands were transformed into spice-producing prisons. Yet in Europe, glossy pamphlets painted the company as a beacon of progress. And the deception worked. Share prices climbed. Dividends flowed. Ordinary citizens believed they were funding exploration and science, not conquest. But whispers spread. Missing cargoes, forged accounts, governors pocketing fortunes. The VOC became the first corporation in history to face a crisis of trust. Auditors were hired, whistleblowers silenced, and the board doubled down on secrecy. Here's the irony. The same transparency that built the world's first stock exchange was being buried by the very company that created it. The VOC had shown humanity how to raise capital and how to corrupt it. What the public couldn't see was that the company's golden empire was already rotting from within. And while investors toasted another record year, a new competitor was preparing to steal its crown. By the mid-1700s, the Dutch East India Company was drowning in its own success. Its fleet of hundreds of ships demanded endless maintenance. Its private armies devoured cash. Every voyage that once brought riches now barely broke even. Corruption had metastasized. Governors lived in palaces, while sailors died of scurvy on half-funded expeditions. Paperwork multiplied, profits shrank, and the once fearless traders became bureaucrats counting coins. Then came the rivals. The British East India Company seized key ports and trade routes. French competition grew fierce. Global demand shifted, and the VOC's monopoly collapsed. Investors panicked. Dividends fell from 40% to nothing. Rumors of bankruptcy spread across Amsterdam's coffee houses, the same cafes where the stock market had been born. Desperate directors tried to save face with loans and new taxes in Asia. But the more they squeezed their colonies, the faster rebellion spread. Ships were captured, factories burned, and entire trading posts lost overnight. By 1799, the impossible became real. The richest corporation in human history filed for bankruptcy. Its debts and possessions, thousands of miles of territory, fortresses, and fleets, were absorbed by the Dutch government. After almost 2 centuries of dominance, the VOC was gone. Its flag lowered. Its coins melted. Its archives sealed. Yet its legacy never disappeared. The concept of publicly traded shares, global logistics networks, and corporate governance all trace back to the Dutch East India Company. Every stock exchange, every multinational, every investor clicking buy owes a debt to this ghost of empire. But its story is also a warning. When profit becomes power and accountability fades, even a $10 trillion empire can vanish overnight. You've been watching Financial History Uncovered. If history taught us one thing through the VOC, it's this: the market always remembers who got greedy.